Tonight it was, not expected to be a victory. It was very Democrat areas, but I don't think it was good for Republicans. I don't think it was good. I'm not sure it was good for anybody. But we had an interesting evening, and we learned a lot. If you read the pollsters, the shutdown was a big factor, negative for the Republicans, and that was a big factor. And they say that I wasn't on the ballot was the biggest factor. But I don't know about that, but I was honored that they said that. But countless public servants are now not being paid, and the air traffic control system is under increasing strain. We must get the government back open soon, and really immediately. We have to get it up. We have the hottest economy we've ever had, and it's affecting the stock market now a little bit. It's time for Republicans to do what they have to do, and that's terminate the filibuster. It's the only...
Okay, so picture this. You're Donald Trump. You're back in the White House. You spent an entire year telling everyone how you're going to make America great again. You call a big rally to celebrate your first year back in power. And then, right there, live, on camera, your own supporters, the people who've had your back through everything, they get up and walk out. Not quietly either. One guy literally screams, "We're tired of losing," as he's heading for the exit. Can you believe this? This isn't some random Tuesday night event at a Holiday Inn conference room. This is November 5th, 2025. This is a White House rally. In Trump's own base, his ride or die crew, they're ditching him in the middle of his speech. Now here's where it gets absolutely wild. This wasn't supposed to happen. Trump called this rally to fire up the base after his first year back in office. But instead of celebration mode, he walked into a political disaster. Because just hours before, Democrats swept a bunch of off-year elections across multiple states. Republicans got hammered, and Trump supporters, they're looking around thinking, wait, weren't we supposed to be winning? The timing couldn't be worse? Yeah, Trump's up there trying to pump everyone up. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest. You can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video.
And it's affecting the stock market now a little bit. It's time for Republicans to do what they have to do, and that's terminate the filibuster. It's the only way you can do it. And if you don't terminate the filibuster, you'll be in bad shape. We won't pass any legislation. There'll be no legislation passed for 3.25. We have 3.25 years, so that's a long time.
Trying to deflect, trying to blame Democrats for the government shutdown that's been dragging on. And his own people are like, nah, we're good. And they just leave. This is wild. So let me set the scene for you. Trump's at the podium. He's doing his usual thing, talking about how everything's the Democrats' fault, how they're blocking progress, how Republicans need to change Senate rules to get stuff done. And he admits, and this is a direct quote from his own mouth, that these election results were not anticipated to be a victory and not beneficial for Republicans. Come on. That's the understatement of the century, right? Because here's what really happened. Democrats didn't just win a few random races. They rode a wave of voter fury straight into victory after victory. And the reason? The government shutdown, the economy, immigration policies that are ticking people off left and right. All of this piling up. And Trump's base, the people who've defended him through impeachments and investigations and legal battles and everything else, they're starting to crack. The walkout goes viral immediately. Social media explodes. Twitter is on fire. TikTok's full of clips. Everyone's sharing the video of these supporters just getting up and leaving while Trump's mid-sentence. It becomes this instant symbol of something bigger happening inside the Republican Party. And here's the kicker. This isn't just about one embarrassing moment. This is about the numbers. Real polling data that shows Trump's losing his grip. Gallup comes out with a poll on November 8th, just 3 days after this rally disaster. And get this, only 42% of Republicans approve of Trump's leadership. Let that sink in. 42%. That's down from 58% just 1 year ago. Are you kidding me? That's a 16-point drop in 12 months among his own party. So what we're watching here, this isn't just a bad news cycle. This isn't just a rough week for Trump. This is the beginning of something that could reshape the entire 2026 midterms. Because if Trump can't keep his own base fired up, if his own supporters are walking out on him at his own events, what does that mean for every Republican running in 2 years? Think about it. Every GOP candidate is going to have to figure out how close they want to stand to Trump. Do they embrace him and risk alienating the voters who are clearly getting frustrated? Or do they distance themselves and risk making Trump mad, which could mean he turns his base against them? It's a lose-lose situation. And it all started with this one moment. This one walkout. This one rally where everything fell apart. Now, before we dive deep into what this really means and why it's happening now, I want to make something crystal clear. This story connects to everything. The economy, immigration, the government shutdown, Trump's past controversies, his relationship with his own party. All of it's coming to a head, and we're going to break down exactly why this matters and what comes next. Because trust me, this walkout is just the tip of the iceberg. And look, I know some people are going to say I'm overreacting, that Trump's been counted out before, and he always comes back, that his base is loyal, and they're not going anywhere. And yeah, that's been true in the past. Trump survived scandals that would have destroyed any other politician. He's bounced back from losses. He's defied the odds over and over. But this feels different. This feels like something shifted. Because when your own supporters, the people who waited in line for hours to see you, when they're walking out in the middle of your speech, that's not just bad optics. That's a symptom of something deeper. Something that might not be fixable with a few good rallies and some red meat rhetoric. So buckle up, because we're about to break down exactly what's happening here, why Trump's in more trouble than anyone wants to admit, and what it all means for the future of the Republican Party and American politics. Alright, so let's talk about what's really going on here. Because the surface story, Trump gets embarrassed at a rally, that's dramatic, sure, but the deeper story, that's where things get interesting and kind of scary if you're a Republican strategist right now. Here's what most people are missing. This walkout didn't happen in a vacuum. This is the result of months, actually a full year of pressure building up inside the Republican Party. And it's all coming apart at the seams, right when Trump can least afford it. Let's start with the government shutdown, because that's the immediate crisis that's got everyone furious. We're talking hundreds of thousands of federal workers who've been furloughed, people who aren't getting paychecks, families who can't pay their bills. And it's not just affecting government employees, it's rippling through the entire economy. When federal workers don't get paid, they don't spend money. Local businesses suffer. Contractors don't get paid. It spirals. And voters, they're looking around thinking, Trump's been back for a year. Republicans control the government. Why can't they get this fixed? That's the question Trump couldn't answer at that rally. That's why people walked out. Now, Trump's response to all this, he's blaming Democrats. Shocker, right? He's saying Democrats are blocking everything, that they're refusing to negotiate, that they're the ones holding federal workers hostage. And yeah, Democrats are pushing back hard. But here's the thing. When you're the party in power, when you're the president, you own the results. Fair or not, that's how voters see it. And the results, they're terrible. Those off-year elections on November 5th, Democrats won races in places where they shouldn't have. Places that went red in 2024. Places where Trump had rallies and did well. All of a sudden, they're flipping blue. And it's not close either. We're talking clear victories, fueled by voter anger over the shutdown and economic anxiety. Let me give you some context here. Off-year elections usually favor the party that's fired up, the party that's motivated, the party whose voters actually show up. And for the past few years, that's been Republicans. Trump's base has been super energized. They've been showing up to every election, ready to fight. But November 5th, 2025, that energy's gone. Democrats are the ones who are fired up now. And Republicans, they're staying home. Or worse, they're showing up and voting Democrat because they're so frustrated with how things are going. This is wild. Now let's talk about immigration, because this is another huge piece of the puzzle. Trump's been pushing hardline immigration policies since day one of his second term. Tougher border enforcement, stricter deportation rules, the whole 9 yards. And his base, they love that stuff initially. That's what they voted for. But here's where it gets complicated. Those policies, they're alienating Latino voters in huge numbers, and not just Latino voters who lean Democrat anyway. We're talking about Latino voters who swung toward Trump in 2024. People who gave him a chance. People who thought maybe he'd be good for the economy or good for their communities. ABC News reports that Latino voters are reversing their 2024 swing toward Trump. They're going back to Democrats. And it's showing up in election results in places like New York and New Jersey, where Latino communities helped Democrats win races that were supposed to be competitive. So Trump's in this impossible position. If he backs off the immigration policies, his hardcore base gets mad. But if he keeps pushing them, he's driving away Latino voters who could decide the 2026 midterms. There's no good answer here. And then there's the economy, which should be Trump's strong suit, right? The economy was always his selling point. I'm the business guy. I know how to make deals. I'll make the economy boom. That was the pitch. But right now, the economy's shaky. The stock market's volatile. The government shutdown's creating uncertainty. Businesses don't know what's coming next. Investors are nervous. And everyday people, they're feeling it in their wallets. Consumer confidence is dropping. People are worried about their jobs, worried about inflation coming back, worried about another recession. And when voters feel economic anxiety, they punish whoever's in charge. Doesn't matter if it's technically your fault or not. You're the president, you own it. Trump knows this. That's why he's trying so hard to shift blame. That's why he's pointing fingers at Democrats, at the media, at anyone but himself. But it's not working because voters aren't buying it anymore. Now here's where the story gets even more interesting. Remember all those controversies about betting markets during the 2024 election? Kalshi and Polymarket and all those platforms where people were putting real money on election outcomes. Trump was all over that. He loved pointing to betting odds showing him ahead. He'd tweet about it, talk about it at rallies, use it as proof he was going to win. Well, those same betting markets, they're still around. And now people are using them to bet on political outcomes during Trump's second term. Whether the shutdown will end, whether certain bills will pass, whether Trump's approval ratings will go up or down, it's become this whole thing. Google even announced on November 7th, 2025, that they're integrating Kalshi and Polymarket predictions into Google Finance. So now when you search for political news, you can see what gamblers think is going to happen. And right now, the betting markets are not optimistic about Trump's chances in 2026. Can you believe this? We've turned politics into a literal casino. And Trump, the guy who used to own casinos, is now watching people bet against him. There's also this deeper thing happening with election integrity. Trump spent years claiming the 2020 election was rigged. His whole political identity since leaving office the first time was built around that claim. And a lot of his base, they believe it. They think the system's corrupt. They think elections can't be trusted. But now Trump's back in power. He won in 2024. So if elections are rigged, how'd he win? And if they're not rigged when he wins, but they are rigged when he loses, what does that say? You see the logical problem here? Some Republicans are starting to ask these questions. Not out loud, because that's political suicide in Trump's GOP, but quietly, privately, they're wondering if maybe the constant focus on election fraud is hurting more than it's helping, because it makes their own voters cynical about the whole system, and cynical voters don't show up. That might explain some of what happened on November 5th. Republican voters who are so convinced the system's broken that they figure why bother, and they stay home. Meanwhile, Democrats are fired up and ready to fight, and they win. So when you put all this together, the government shutdown, the economic anxiety, the immigration backlash, the betting market drama, the election integrity confusion, you've got a perfect storm, and Trump's standing right in the middle of it, at a rally that was supposed to celebrate his first year back in office, and his own supporters are walking out. The visual of that walkout, it's powerful, because it's not just about one event, it's about everything. It's about frustration boiling over. It's about promises that haven't been kept. It's about a base that's starting to wonder if they made a mistake. And for Republicans looking ahead to 2026, this is nightmare fuel. Because if Trump's base is cracking, if his approval's dropping, if his own supporters are abandoning him, what does that mean for every GOP candidate who's tied their career to him? Here's another angle. Nobody's talking about enough. The money. Campaign fundraising. Trump's always been incredible at raising money. His supporters open their wallets like crazy. Small dollar donations, merchandise sales, rally tickets, all of it adds up to hundreds of millions of dollars that fuel Republican campaigns. But if his base is wavering, if they're walking out of rallies, if they're disappointed and frustrated, they stop donating. And if Trump's fundraising dries up, that hurts every Republican candidate who depends on that money. It creates a cascading effect throughout the party. Republican operatives are watching this very closely. They're looking at fundraising numbers. They're tracking small dollar donations. They're trying to figure out if this walkout is an isolated incident or a sign that the money's about to stop flowing. And so far, the signs aren't great. Donations are down compared to this time last year. Not catastrophically down, but noticeably down. Enough to worry people. Enough to make GOP strategists nervous about 2026. We're about to find out just how deep this goes. Okay, so let's break this down into what actually matters going forward. Because all of this, the rally disaster, the walkout, the polling collapse, it's not just drama. It has real consequences, and we need to understand what comes next. First, the 2026 midterms are now a complete toss-up. And honestly, they might be leaning Democrat at this point, which is insane when you think about it. Republicans should have every advantage. They control the White House. They have momentum from 2024. Trump's base should be energized. But instead, everything's falling apart. Here's why that matters. Midterm elections usually go against the president's party anyway. That's just historical pattern. The party in power loses seats. It's happened over and over. But when the president's approval rating is below 50%, it's a bloodbath. And Trump's sitting at 42% among his own party. That's catastrophic. So every Republican running in 2026, they're looking at these numbers and panicking. Do they stick with Trump and hope he turns it around? Do they distance themselves and risk making him angry? Do they try to walk some impossible middle ground where they support Trump's policies but not Trump himself? There's no good answer. And that's before we even talk about primaries, because you know Trump's going to get involved in primaries. He always does. If a Republican says something he doesn't like, he'll endorse their primary challenger. He'll attack them on social media. He'll make their life hell. But here's the twist. Trump's endorsement might not be worth what it used to be. If his approval is dropping, if his base is wavering, if people are walking out of his rallies, then maybe his endorsement actually hurts more than it helps. That would be a massive shift in Republican politics. We've already seen hints of this. There were a few special elections earlier this year where Trump endorsed candidates and they lost. Not by huge margins, but they lost. And political analysts started quietly asking, is Trump's endorsement still the golden ticket it used to be? Or is it becoming a liability? That question matters, because Trump's entire power within the Republican Party is based on his ability to move voters. If he can't do that anymore, if his endorsement doesn't guarantee victory, then his grip on the party weakens. And once that starts happening, it accelerates fast. Second, the government shutdown has to end, like it has to. Because every day it continues, Trump's approval drops more federal workers go without paychecks, more voters get angry, more ammunition for Democrats to use in 2026. It's killing Republicans politically. Trump knows this, his advisors know this, but here's the problem. Ending the shutdown means making a deal with Democrats, and making a deal means compromise. And compromise makes Trump's base mad because they see it as weakness. They want him to fight, to stand firm, to never give an inch. So Trump's stuck. If he keeps the shutdown going, his approval tanks, and Republicans lose in 2026. If he ends it by compromising, his base gets mad, and Republicans still might lose in 2026. Either way, it's bad. The only question is how bad. My guess? The shutdown ends within the next few weeks. Trump will frame it as a victory somehow. He'll claim he got concessions from Democrats, even if he didn't. He'll declare success and move on. And his base, some of them will buy it, some won't. But at least the immediate crisis will be over. The problem is, even when the shutdown ends, the damage is done. Federal workers who miss paychecks, they're not going to forget that. Voters who got frustrated, they're not going to suddenly forgive everything. The shutdown's going to leave a scar that lasts through 2026. Third, immigration is going to define the next year of Trump's presidency because he can't back down on it without looking weak. But he also can't keep pushing hardline policies without losing Latino voters permanently. And Latino voters, they're growing as a share of the electorate. You can't win national elections without at least some Latino support. Republicans know this. That's why some of them are privately urging Trump to soften his tone, not necessarily change his policies, but at least change how he talks about immigration. Make it less about deportation and more about border security. Make it less personal and more about law and order. Will Trump listen? Probably not. He doesn't do subtle. He doesn't do measured. He does bold and loud and controversial. That's his brand. But if he wants to win in 2026, if he wants Republicans to win, he might have to adjust, even just a little bit. The Latino vote is particularly crucial in states like Arizona, Nevada, and parts of Texas. These are states Republicans need to win. And if Latino voters keep swinging back to Democrats like they did in those November 5th elections, Republicans are in serious trouble. Fourth, the economy is everything. If the economy is good, Trump survives all this. If the economy is bad, nothing else matters. Voters will punish him. They'll punish Republicans. They'll flip seats blue out of pure frustration. Right now, the economy is in this weird middle ground. It's not terrible, but it's not great. There's anxiety, uncertainty. The shutdown's making things worse. The stock market's jumpy. Consumer confidence is shaky. If this continues, if things tip into recession, Trump's done. Republicans are done. 2026 becomes a Democratic wave election. But if Trump can turn it around, if the shutdown ends and the economy stabilizes and job numbers stay strong and inflation stays low, then maybe he survives this. Maybe Republicans hold on. Maybe that rally walkout becomes a footnote instead of a turning point. The next 6 months will tell us everything. Now let's talk about what that rally walkout really symbolizes. Because it's not just about one event. It's about a broader shift happening inside the conservative movement. Trump's grip on the Republican Party is not as strong as it used to be. He's still powerful. He's still the dominant figure, but he's not invincible anymore. You're seeing more Republicans willing to criticize him, not openly, because that's still dangerous but in private, in background quotes to reporters, in quiet conversations at fundraisers, they're starting to wonder out loud if there's life after Trump, if maybe the party needs to move in a different direction. This is huge, because for years, Trump has been untouchable in Republican politics. You criticize Trump, you're out. You challenge Trump, you lose your primary. You cross Trump, your political career is over. That's been the rule. But if Trump's losing his base, if his approval is dropping, if his endorsement stops being valuable, then maybe the rules change. Maybe Republicans start feeling brave enough to chart their own course. Maybe we see a post-Trump Republican Party start to emerge, or maybe not. Maybe Trump fights back harder than ever. Maybe he doubles down. Maybe he purges anyone who shows even a hint of disloyalty. Maybe he tightens his grip and the party becomes even more about him. That's definitely possible. Trump doesn't go down without a fight. Honestly, I don't know which way it goes. Nobody does. We're in uncharted territory here. Here's what I do know. That rally walkout on November 5th, 2025 is going to be remembered. Whether it's remembered as the beginning of Trump's collapse or just a temporary embarrassment, that depends on what happens next, on whether the economy recovers, on whether the shutdown ends, on whether Trump can win back his base, or if they're done with him for good. The stakes couldn't be higher. For Trump, personally, for the Republican Party, for American politics, because if Trump falls, the entire MAGA movement might fall with him. And if that happens, we're looking at a complete reshuffling of the political landscape. Think about all the Republican politicians who've built their entire careers around being loyal to Trump. All the ones who've defended every scandal, supported every policy, repeated every talking point. If Trump becomes politically toxic, what happens to them? Do they pivot? Do they double down? Do they retire? And what about the voters? The millions of people who've made Trump their political identity, who've bought the hats, attended the rallies, fought with their families over politics. If Trump fails them, if he can't deliver the wins they expected, do they stick with the Republican Party? Do they give up on politics entirely? Do they find a new leader? These are massive questions with no clear answers. Or maybe Trump survives this. Maybe he's weathered worse. Maybe his base comes back. Maybe 2026 isn't the disaster everyone's predicting. Maybe we look back on this rally in a year and laugh at how everyone overreacted. But right now, with supporters literally walking out on him, with his approval in free fall, with Democrats winning races they shouldn't win, it's not looking good. The other thing to watch is how the media covers all this, because Trump's relationship with the media has always been complicated. He attacks them constantly, calls them fake news, says they're biased against him. And honestly, a lot of his supporters believe that. They think the media is out to get Trump no matter what. But when his own supporters are walking out, when the polling shows real problems, when the election results speak for themselves, it's harder to blame the media. This isn't media spin, this is reality. And even Trump's most loyal supporters are starting to see it. So what comes next? Honestly, your guess is as good as mine. But I'll be watching. We'll all be watching. Because whatever happens, it's going to be wild. And that's where we're leaving it today. Trump's facing the biggest test of his second term. His base is cracking, his party's nervous, and the 2026 midterms are coming fast. The rally walkout on November 5th might be remembered as the moment everything changed, or it might just be a bad day in a long presidency. Time will tell. But one thing's for sure, the pressure's on. Trump needs wins. He needs his base fired up again. He needs the economy to turn around. He needs the shutdown to end. He needs immigration to stop being such a political liability. He needs everything to go right. And right now, nothing's going right. Buckle up, because this ride's just getting started. Next time, we'll dig into what Republican senators are saying behind closed doors about all this. Because trust me, they're panicking. And some of them are already planning for a future without Trump at the center of everything. This is going to get messy.